and so as a band, everything else we build on top of it and we color it. But what we stand on, I think it absolutely does have that really sweet gospel feel. I think it's incredibly unique and quite palatable, enjoyable. I love being a part of it, and I know that the congregation loves it too.
Oh, yeah, you can definitely see that the congregation definitely enjoys it, and particularly since it's such a young congregation. I mean, I know there are members of all age ranges, but if you look at the congregation as a general whole, it is definitely full of a lot of youth and young people in the congregation. I mean, there are definitely mixed age ranges, but if I had to put an average age on it, it would probably be like 40 and under, because a lot of the members of the congregation are coming from our local churches and things of that nature. So I'm sure that kind of music probably appeals to them even more than it might to other parts of the congregation.
Oh, without a doubt. I think the surprising part of my job it was never. We were a new church. I didn't have a job description. There was no manual. There was no precedent, and so what we were doing was really very new. And for someone like myself, I enjoy being a bit of a visionary, but I also am a really good follower. And I felt a little lost in the beginning of really trying to understand my role, what it means to be a director. And I've come to discover that really most of my job is having the thumb on the pulse of the culture of the church, and that not just the race of the church, right? The culture. So you have people who are younger, and you have some people who are older, and you have some people who have been unchurched or did not grow up with any sort of church background, and you have some people who grew up in high church, and you have some people who grew up in a Deep Woods Baptist Church, and you have all different types of cultural experiences that everybody's bringing with them, and an idea of what it means to worship. And so my hope and where I spend a large amount of my time and my efforts, my energy in connecting to the congregation, knowing who they are, knowing what they bring with them, knowing what is your musical home and what is your heart song. What do you feel like God really speaks to you inside of this particular music or a genre or a song? And what I found, there are three main veins, soon to emerge a fourth vein that I'm trying to develop right now. But the three main veins that we draw from are certainly Christian contemporary, and we have contemporary gospel, and then we have hymns. And so I really use hymns. I rely heavily on hymns because they are familiar to most people, and they cross culture and they cross denominations. And unless you've been unchurched, most of the time you know the hymns that we arrange. But I have the privilege of working with some beautiful composers and arrangers, and so often my job really is scouting out and listening to the congregation and listening to what is their heart song and what they're desiring to hear and what they're desiring to worship to. And I bring those songs to the band and I put it on the table and I say, what can we do with this? And before long, there's lots of ideas and then a song is developed and arranged. And then we're able to bring it to the congregation on Sunday. I think the most rewarding part of my job is looking out at the faces of the congregation and knowing that they are experiencing true worship. And it is not, certainly, I'm not going to take credit for that. That's a Holy Spirit thing. But to know that I'm providing an atmosphere, that I think that's one of the most beautiful parts of my job.
Oh, yeah. And one of the things that I didn't realize until you just brought it up just now was that you didn't really have a lot of experience in terms of being like a director, but you did recently go, I guess it was like maybe the latter part of last year or earlier this year, to a workshop with worship leaders. What were some of the things that you learned that you didn't know when you went to that workshop? I forgot where it was at. I just remember that you disappeared for at least a week or two because you had gone to this workshop.
Mm-hmm, yeah. New City Music Fellowship. It's a network of churches, and they work together with the same mission that we at Christ Central have, which is a cross-cultural mission. And it's a network of churches all over the U.S., and they meet every other year to have a music conference. Actually, the very first time that I went was in Baltimore, and that was a couple of years ago. And I think that was the one that I learned the most at, in the sense that I still didn't really know exactly what I was doing or how to do it very well. I was just trying things, and they happened to be working. I felt most of it was providence, and God was on my side, because I didn't know what on earth I was doing. And so it was just a really rich time of being able to talk to people who have been doing it for, a decade longer than me, and just hearing some of the things that they use, and tricks and tools that they use to their advantage. And actually, Nikki Lerner was the primary speaker at that particular event, and I learned the most from her. And I think what I received during that time was permission to not know anything, and permission to learn as much as I can. And it was just a very humbling time. And I think at that point, I became a little more quiet and just started to ask a lot of questions and learn from the people that I was doing music with, and learn from the congregation. So I think it was a pivotal time for me. I did just attend the same music conference. It was in Atlanta. And this particular time, I think this one was really, for me, more of a spiritual renewal time of just remembering that God has called me to this thing, and I didn't stumble upon it. It wasn't an accident. God called me here, and it wasn't a call from a big mountaintop like I thought it would be. But this is exactly where He wants me to be, and just a renewal of my spirit to do what it is that I do, and just stop getting caught up in the minutia of a job and letting worship feel like a job, but to really transform my heart to a place of humility and service.
Now, who are some of the musicians that you have admired, either growing up? I mean, I imagine you definitely admired your dad because he was an organist, but who are some of the other musicians that just growing up that you admired, either out of the gospel world or out of the secular world?
Oh, my goodness. You know what? It's kind of like when you ask me, hey, sing a song real quick, and then I can't think of any songs that I know. So my repertoire is thousands of songs, right? Who are my main influences? Oh, my gosh, I listen to so many people. Bob Dylan was really kind of influential for me as a songwriter and a lyricist. I didn't know that I was a songwriter originally. I actually got my degree in poetry. I didn't know that I would really be a musician. I thought I would be a poet. Either way, I accepted the fact that I would be poor. And I just really admired his writing style, and I admired that his voice was kind of rough and not, it somehow was pleasing and displeasing to listen to at the same time. I don't know how he does that, but that's some Bob Dylan magic that I really loved. And of course, I did grow up with a pretty strong musical identity at an early age. It was Johnny Cash happens to be my cousin, and so like having a family from that is tied to such a large name, then Johnny Cash kind of infiltrated our entire upbringing. So I've always admired Johnny Cash and the songwriter that he is, and just who he was as a musician, and how his career really had a longevity to it, really until the very end. I found that to be very admirable. Golly, I can't even think of anybody else that I really just love. I listened to a lot of Tori Amos as a young high school person. Again, she was a really amazing lyricist. I think anybody who can really bring rich words and melody, where those two things can meet, I think I really admired that.
And are you still a fan of poetry? Because like I said, you wanted to be a poet. Do you still follow the poetry scene, and do you still listen to poetry or write poetry of your own, or have you developed any poetic, or singing talents with either of your kids, either Eden or Xander?
Oh, yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, I do. I love poetry still. The weight of a word is so heavy and so powerful, and it can be healing and it can be hurtful. And I don't, as you can hear, I don't have a shortage of words. So being able to write poetry actually helps me to refine the weight of each word and to hold each one in my hand and ask, is this the one that belongs here in this space? So my relationship with words happened very early on. I went through college and got a degree in poetry, really as soon as I started writing songs, I stopped writing poetry per se, and just really delved into like, what does it take to be a really great songwriter? And it wasn't until, I guess, maybe 4 or 5 years ago that I started to dust off my poetry a little bit and do that more for myself and not for a particular performance, but just for myself. So I think Xander, my son, he has a very poetic soul. I think he says a lot of amazing things and has always said a lot of really profound things from a very early age. And Eden, my daughter, she also loves to write songs, and she's always playing the ukulele. This girl holed herself up into a room and taught herself how to play the ukulele in a day, and she came out and had a full finished song. I was like, oh, okay, that's who you are. So it's definitely deeply rooted in my children. And I'm not sure exactly what form it's going to take, but it's really amazing to watch these two people be interested in things and as they get older, be capable of doing amazing things. My daughter is learning how to play the upright bass, and I think that's really admirable of her to take on such a huge instrument with such a big voice to it, and do something that really still is largely male-dominated and can still be felt, I think, at her young age.
And now one of the other things, I think we have another guest to be coming in shortly that I want you to stay on, but one of the other things that I just wanted to touch on really quickly and everything was it seems like, well, I know that the choir is going to do some other things, like they're going to create a whole choir. So how is that coming about, and when will that come about? And I also think that there is a concert coming about. Is that this month or next month?
Yeah, it's this month. So we have October the 28th. We have it's more of an intimate night with Saints of Sparrow, and it's going to be happening at the Golden Belt over in Durham, Building 2, Suite 220. Everybody is welcome to come by. It's actually our church office. We've just moved to a larger office to be able to accommodate some of our space and some of the people, since our congregation is so large. So it's just going to be a really intimate night. I think it's going to feel really amazing to be in a space where we're not up on a stage, but on the floor with everyone else. And it's going to be a time of just intimately connecting, and a time for Saints of Sparrows and the members of Saints of Sparrows to share some of our favorite songs. And we get to choose what we want to play based on what we love and the songs that we enjoy to play and worship to. And it's going to be a time of storytelling, and we're going to read our favorite scriptures, and there'll be a time of prayer, and it'll just be a really, really sweet time with the congregation and with Saints of Sparrows. And then we'll have a short Q&A afterwards if anybody had any questions for us. And then the choir that we're developing, we do have a new choir that's just started. We'll be performing our very first number. Write Your Blessed Name is the name of the tune that we're going to be performing. I can't tell you the name of the composer at this moment in time. I'm sorry. But I will say Autumn Rainey, she is a beautiful arranger, especially of chorale music. She is amazing, and she rearranged this particular song that she's loved for many years, and has given it just a really fresh color to it that is incredible. And it is a hard piece. We really expected a lot from the very beginning, and they have risen to it beautifully. So we will expect great things from the choir November 18th. And that is open to the community. Anybody can come and join that choir. We would love to have anybody who wants to come.
So, Dean, if you've heard that and you want to come down from New Jersey, you're perfectly welcome to join the choir. I think I just heard that.
Come on, Dean.